I bought a silver ring at a pawn shop for $40. 3 days later, I noticed something impossible. It got warm. Not from my body heat. The metal itself heated up, but only near certain people. 3 people, to be exact. I'm a physics student. I don't believe in unexplained phenomena, so I tested it, obsessively, for weeks. The results were terrifying in their consistency. Same 3 people, same temperature increase, same proximity threshold. I needed to know why. What I discovered changed everything I thought I understood about the people around me. Before we dive in, have you ever bought something that ended up changing your life in unexpected ways? Tell us in the comments. And if you love stories about mysteries, invisible connections, and extraordinary people, please subscribe so you don't miss our next one. Now let me take you back to the day I bought a ring that taught me empathy is more than just a feeling. I was a senior physics major at Temple University in Philadelphia, and I approached everything in my life with the same methodology: observe, hypothesize, test, conclude. I believed in measurable phenomena, reproducible results, things that could be proven through experimentation and data. I didn't believe in fate or cosmic signs or objects with mysterious powers. So when I bought a simple silver ring at a pawn shop on a gray Saturday afternoon, I had no expectations beyond filling a gap on my right hand where I used to wear my high school class ring before I lost it. The ring was unremarkable. Plain silver band, no stones, no engravings visible to the naked eye. It cost $40, fit perfectly on my index finger, and felt comfortable enough that I forgot I was wearing it within an hour. I put it on that Saturday and went about my weekend. Studied for my quantum mechanics exam, met my roommate Jade for coffee, went to the library, normal college senior activities. It was Monday morning when I first noticed something odd. I stopped at my usual coffee shop before my 9 a.m. statistical mechanics class. The barista was a guy I'd seen dozens of times, Kurt, according to his name tag. Mid-30s, quiet, always polite, but not chatty. I ordered my usual black coffee, and while I was waiting, I noticed my ring felt warm. Not uncomfortably warm, just noticeably warmer than it had been. Like I'd been holding a hot cup and the heat had transferred to the metal, except I hadn't been holding anything hot yet. I looked at the ring, confused. Kurt handed me my coffee, I paid, and I left. By the time I got to campus, the ring was back to normal temperature. Weird, I said to myself and promptly forgot about it. 3 days later, it happened again. I was in the physics department office talking to Professor Carell about my thesis proposal. She was helping me refine my research question about quantum entanglement applications, and mid-conversation, my ring started getting warm again. Same sensation. Same distinct warmth that felt like it was coming from the metal itself, not from my finger. I pulled my hand back slightly, examining the ring while trying to keep my attention on Professor Carell's feedback about my methodology. "Everything okay?" she asked, noticing my distraction. "Yes, sorry. Just, my ring feels warm. It's strange." She smiled. "Metal conducts heat. You probably touched something warm without realizing." But I hadn't. I'd been holding my notebook the whole time, nothing else. The warmth faded after about 30 seconds. I made a mental note and moved on. The third time it happened was what made me start paying real attention. I was at the gym on campus, not my usual routine, but Jade had convinced me to try a yoga class. I was terrible at it, too inflexible and too restless to enjoy holding poses. But about 20 minutes in, during a particularly uncomfortable warrior pose, my ring started warming again. I was so surprised I lost my balance and stumbled. The instructor, a woman in her early 40s named Mandy, who I'd never met before, immediately came over. "You okay?" "Fine, just clumsy." But I was staring at my ring. Same warmth, same intensity, and it stayed warm the entire time Mandy was helping me correct my pose. The moment she moved to help another student, the warmth faded. That's when my physics brain kicked in. 3 data points, 3 instances of the ring exhibiting the same anomalous behavior. That wasn't coincidence. That was a pattern, and patterns could be investigated. Over the next 2 weeks, I conducted what I started calling the ring experiment in my lab notebook. I documented every instance of warmth: date, time, location, proximity to other people, temperature increase. I started carrying a small infrared thermometer, duration of warmth. Environmental factors. The results were striking. The ring got warm, specifically increased by 3 to 4 degrees Celsius, in the presence of exactly 3 people. Kurt, the barista professor, Karel, Mandy, the yoga instructor, not my roommate, not my other professors, not random people on the street, just those 3, consistently, reproducibly. I tested it obsessively. I went to the coffee shop every day for a week. The ring warmed every single time Kurt was working, and never when other baristas were there. I went to Professor Karel's office hours 3 times, warmth every time. I went back to yoga twice more, warmth every time, but only when Mandy was teaching. The ring would start warming when I was within approximately 3 meters of these people, reach peak temperature at about 1 meter, and cool down as soon as I moved away or they moved away. It was the most consistent, reproducible phenomenon I'd encountered outside of a controlled lab experiment. I needed to understand the mechanism. So I did what any physics student would do. I took the ring to my friend Zeke. He was a grad student in materials engineering, and asked him to analyze it. "What am I looking for?" he asked, examining the ring under magnification. "Anything unusual. Any mechanism that could cause selective thermal response to specific individuals." He ran it through various tests: spectroscopy, X-ray imaging, magnetometry. After 3 hours, he called me back to the lab. "Lena, this ring is insane." "What do you mean?" He pulled up an X-ray image on his computer. "Look at this. See these microstructures inside the band? That's not decorative. That's circuitry. Incredibly sophisticated circuitry. Way more advanced than anything I've seen in commercial wearables." I leaned in, staring at the screen. He was right. Embedded in the silver were hair-thin pathways of what looked like conductive material, forming complex patterns. "There's also this." He zoomed in on a section. "This looks like a thermal element, something designed to heat up deliberately. And this section here? I think it's a sensor. Maybe bioelectric? It could be reading electromagnetic signals from nearby sources." "Like people?" "Maybe. The human body generates electromagnetic fields, brain activity, heart rhythm, all of it produces measurable signals. If this ring is designed to detect specific patterns in those fields, it could theoretically identify individuals with particular neurological or physiological characteristics. That's not possible with something this small. It shouldn't be, but it's here. Someone built this. Someone way ahead of current technology." I left his lab with more questions than answers. Someone had deliberately created a ring that could identify specific people based on some measurable characteristic they shared. But what? And why? I decided to approach it differently. Instead of focusing on the ring, I'd focus on the people. What did Kurt, Professor Karel, and Mandy have in common? Over the next week, I observed. I listened. I asked careful, casual questions. Kurt the barista was quiet, thoughtful. One day when the shop was empty, I asked him how long he'd been working there. 3 years, he said. I used to be an ER nurse. Burned out pretty hard. Needed something simpler. What made you burn out? He was quiet for a moment. The job was intense, but honestly, it was more than that. I felt everything. Every patient's pain. Every family's grief. It sounds dramatic, but sometimes I'd go home and feel physical pain in the same places patients had been injured, like I was carrying their trauma in my body. Professor Karel was more reserved, but I'd heard her mention in class once that she had trouble watching medical dramas. "Too visceral," she'd said. "I get too affected by depictions of suffering. It feels too real." Mandy was the most open. After a class one day, I stayed to help her pack up mats, and we got to talking. "Do you have any other jobs?" I asked. "I work part-time at a special needs school. Kids with severe autism, mostly nonverbal." "That must be challenging." "It is, but I have this weird ability. I can tell what they need even when they can't communicate it. It's like I feel what they're feeling." One time, a boy kept having meltdowns, and no one could figure out why. I just knew. I felt this sharp pain in my jaw. Insisted they take him to a dentist. Turned out he had a severe abscess. He couldn't tell us it hurt, but somehow I felt it. I felt chills. "You felt his pain, physically?" "Yeah. I know it sounds strange, but it's happened my whole life. I feel what people around me are feeling, not just emotionally, but physically. If someone near me is in pain, I feel echoes of it in my own body. I went home that night and researched obsessively. Hours of reading scientific papers, medical journals, case studies, and I found it. Mirror touch synesthesia, a rare neurological condition where the brain's mirror neurons are hyperactive, causing people to physically feel sensations they observe in others. When someone with this condition sees another person in pain, their brain doesn't just register empathy, it actually simulates that pain in their own body. It was real, documented, scientifically recognized, and incredibly rare, estimated at about 1 in 100,000 people. I had found 3 of them, in one city, and a ring that could somehow detect them. But who made the ring? And why? The pawn shop where I'd bought it was small, family-owned. The owner, a man in his 60s named Carl, kept meticulous records. "I need to know who sold this ring," I said, showing it to him. He checked his computer. Young guy, early 20s, name was Jonah Hartman, sold it about 2 months ago along with some other items, said his mother had passed. "Do you have contact information?" Just what he put on the form. Carl wrote down a phone number. I called that evening. A young man answered. "Is this Jonah Hartman?" "Yeah, who's this?" "My name is Lena Sawyer. I bought a ring from the pawn shop on Market Street. The owner said you sold it. I wanted to return it to you. I think it might be more important than you realized." There was a long pause. "The silver ring? My mom's ring?" "I think so. Can we meet?" We met the next day at a coffee shop. Jonah was 22, my age, with tired eyes and the slightly lost look of someone still processing grief. I showed him the ring. He held it carefully like it was fragile. "This was my mom's, Dr. Iris Hartman. She made it." "She made it? Like, she built it herself?" "Yeah, she was a neuroscientist, specialized in synesthesia, mirror neurons. This ring was part of her research project." "What kind of research?" Jonah looked at me carefully. "Can I ask, why does it matter to you? Why did you track me down?" I explained everything, the warming, the pattern, the 3 people, my investigation and what I'd learned about mirror touch synesthesia. Jonah's eyes filled with tears. It worked. It actually worked. She'd be so happy. What worked? My mom had mirror touch synesthesia, severe case. She felt everything, other people's pain, their emotions, like they were her own. It made her an incredible researcher, but it also made her life incredibly difficult. She couldn't go to hospitals, funerals, even crowded places were overwhelming. Too much pain, too much emotion to process. He pulled out his phone, showed me a photo of a woman in her 40s, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She spent years studying the condition, trying to prove it was real, trying to find others like her. She felt so alone. There are so few people with severe mirror touch synesthesia, and most don't know they have it. They think they're just overly sensitive, or they have anxiety disorders, or they're going crazy. So she built the ring to find them? Yes. She developed technology to detect the specific neurological patterns associated with hyperactive mirror neurons. The ring uses bioelectric sensors to read electromagnetic signals from the brain. When it detects the pattern, it heats up. She wanted to create a network, a way for people with the condition to find each other, support each other, know they weren't alone. Why didn't she publish this? This is breakthrough technology. She was going to. She died before she could finish the project. Stroke 2 years ago. Sudden. She was only 48. He wiped his eyes. When she died, I kept some of her things, but some stuff I sold because I needed money. Jonah, I think I know someone who has this condition. Someone who's been suffering because no one understood what was wrong with her. Who? My sister. I told him about Sophie, about how she'd been struggling for 3 years, ever since she turned 17, how she'd gradually withdrawn from the world, stopped going to school, stopped seeing friends, how she now barely left her room, spent most of her time alone, and when our parents asked what was wrong, she could only say, "The world hurts too much. Being around people hurts." Doctors had diagnosed her with severe anxiety, depression, possible agoraphobia, Medications didn't help. Therapy didn't help. Nothing helped because no one understood what was actually wrong. But I understood now. Sophie wasn't mentally ill. She was an empath in the most literal neurological sense. She felt other people's pain and emotions as if they were her own, and she'd never known that wasn't normal. She thought everyone felt that way, and she was just weak for not being able to handle it. I said I'd return it to you, but can I take it to her first? I asked Jonah. Keep it. That's what my mom would have wanted. She made it to help people like your sister. People like her. That weekend, I drove home. My parents lived in the suburbs about an hour from Philadelphia. Sophie was in her room, as always. She'd turned 20 in isolation, celebrated with just our parents because being around more people was too overwhelming. I knocked on her door. Sophie, it's Lena. Can I come in? Okay. She was sitting on her bed, reading. She looked thin, pale, like someone who didn't get enough sunlight or fresh air. My heart broke looking at her. I approached and the ring on my finger started to heat. That meant I was right. I need to tell you something, I said, sitting down. And I need you to hear me out before you dismiss it, okay? She nodded. I told her everything. About the ring, about mirror touch synesthesia, about the 3 people I'd met who had it, about Jonah's mother who had built technology to find others like her. Sophie, when you say being around people hurts, you mean it literally, don't you? You physically feel what they're feeling. If someone near you is in pain, you feel pain. If someone's sad, you feel their sadness in your body, not just in your mind. She stared at me. Tears started streaming down her face. How did you know? I've tried to explain it to doctors, to mom and dad, to therapists, but they always say that I'm just sensitive. But it's not the same. It's physical. When I was at school and someone got hurt, I felt it in my body. When I see someone crying on TV, my chest tightens like I'm the one crying. It's not imagination. It's real. And no one believed me. I believe you, and it is real. It's a neurological condition. You're not just sensitive, Sophie. You're not broken. Your brain is wired differently. Your mirror neurons are hyperactive. It's rare, but it's documented. There are other people who have it. She grabbed my hands. There are others? I'm not the only one? You're not, and there are ways to manage it. Not cure it, but manage it. Learning to create mental boundaries, techniques to differentiate between your sensations and others, even just knowing what it is and that it's real, that helps. I showed her the research I'd compiled, case studies, scientific papers, resources for people with mirror touch synesthesia. For the first time in 3 years, I saw hope in my sister's eyes. Can I meet them? She asked. The people you found? The ones who have this? I'll ask them. Over the next month, I arranged for Sophie to meet Kurt, Professor Carell, and Mandy. Separately at first, because groups were still overwhelming for her. But she met them, talked to them, heard their stories. Kurt told her about his years as an ER nurse, feeling every patient's pain, thinking he was too weak for the job until he realized he was feeling literally, not just emotionally. Mandy told her about working with nonverbal children, how her ability to feel what they felt made her better at her job, even though it was exhausting. Professor Carell told her about learning to create mental compartments, ways to acknowledge the sensations without being overwhelmed by them. And Sophie, for the first time in years, didn't feel alone. She met people who understood, who believed her, who told her she wasn't crazy or weak or broken. She started therapy again, but this time with a psychologist who specialized in sensory processing differences, not treating her for anxiety or depression, but helping her develop coping mechanisms for her hyperactive mirror neurons. She started going outside again, short walks at first, in quiet areas with few people, then longer walks, then to small, quiet cafes during off hours. 6 months after I'd bought the ring, Sophie came to visit me in Philadelphia. She took the train by herself, something she hadn't been able to do in years. We met at a quiet coffee shop, not the one where Kurt worked, she wasn't ready for that yet, but a small place with only a few customers. How are you doing? I asked. Better, not perfect. I still get overwhelmed sometimes, but now I know what's happening. I know it's my mirror neurons, not me being weak. I know there are others like me. I know I'm not crazy. That makes all the difference. She pulled something out of her bag, a journal filled with her handwriting. I've been writing about it, my experience, what it feels like. I want to share it online in case there are other people like me who don't know what they have, who think they're going crazy. Maybe if they read what I wrote, they'll recognize themselves. They'll know to look for answers. Sophie, that's incredible. It's because of you. You found that ring. You figured it out. You believed me when no one else did. I should have believed you sooner. I'm sorry it took so long. You believed me when it mattered. That's what counts. I still have the ring. I wear it sometimes, though I've met enough people with mirror touch synesthesia now that I don't need it to identify them. I've learned to recognize the signs, the way they flinch when they see someone hurt, the way they tear up at others' pain, the way they avoid crowded places and emotional situations. Jonah and I became friends. We're working together on finishing his mother's project, creating a proper network for people with mirror touch synesthesia. Not just a ring, but a full support system. Resources, community, research. Sophie is part of it too. Her writing has reached hundreds of people who've recognized themselves in her descriptions, people who've spent years thinking they were broken, discovering they're actually extraordinary, because that's what people like Sophie are, extraordinary. They don't just sympathize with suffering, they feel it in their own bodies, and they still choose to be kind, to help, to care, even though caring literally hurts them. The ring taught me something I should have known as a physics student, that the most important things aren't always visible. Particles, forces, fields, we can't see them, but we can measure their effects. We can prove they exist. Mirror touch synesthesia is like that, invisible but real. Unmeasurable in conventional ways, but undeniably present in its effects. And people who have it are carrying weight the rest of us can't imagine. Feeling pain and emotion that isn't theirs, processing sensations that would overwhelm most people, and doing it every single day. They're not weak. They're the strongest people I know, and they deserve to know they're not alone. Have you ever tried to explain something you were experiencing, but no one believed you or understood? Share your story in the comments below. If this story about mysteries, invisible connections, and the extraordinary people who carry the weight of the world touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more meaningful stories every day. Don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss our next thought-provoking tale. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.